Good afternoon, my friends. Before anything else, I'm asking for that usual support. Hit the like button, share the video with everyone who bleeds black and gold. All right, now let's get straight to the point. Bruce Arians, a name that carries weight in Pittsburgh, made headlines this week when he spoke about the Steelers' offense on the Pat McAfee show. And what he said might surprise a lot of fans who remember him as the architect of one of the most explosive offensive eras in Steelers history. Arians didn't just tip his hat to Arthur Smith. He practically joined the black and gold bandwagon. The Steelers are growing on me, he said. I didn't like them that much early in the year, but I really like Arthur Smith and what he's doing offensively. I think he's doing a hell of a job coming from Arians, a man who coached Ben Roethlisberger through some of his best seasons and knows what a balanced, dangerous offense looks like. That praise carries serious meaning. But what's most fascinating is how Arians balanced that compliment with blunt honesty. He pointed out that while the Steelers' system works, it's not built for long drop-back passing. He said the team succeeds when it stays ahead of the chains, runs effectively on early downs, and gets the ball out fast. And he's right. This offense isn't about fireworks. It's about control. It's methodical, physical, and efficient. A style that fits the DNA of this city. It's an offense that knows who it is, and more importantly, who it isn't. When you look at what Arthur Smith has implemented, the picture becomes clear. Pittsburgh isn't trying to mimic the Shanahans or McVays of the league. Smith's approach is grounded in execution and simplicity. Not simplicity of design, but of purpose. The Steelers use multiple looks out of the same formation, often rolling out 6 offensive linemen and mixing in 2 tight ends like Darnell Washington to disguise their intentions. From that jumbo set, they can run 6 different plays. Runs, play actions, bootlegs, keeping defenses guessing every single snap. That's exactly what Dan Orlovsky highlighted when he praised this offense on the same show. Orlovsky called it creatively cautious, which sounds like an insult until you realize it's a compliment in this context. He explained that Pittsburgh is doing things that are simple for their players, but complex for opponents. The quick game passing, the heavy run sets, the movement of the pocket, it all adds up to a system that plays to its strengths. When teams play zone, Aaron Rodgers finds his completions. When they play man, Pittsburgh relies on those one-on-one matchups and quick reads. That formula has worked beautifully these past few weeks. The Steelers have been staying on schedule, avoiding third and longs, and leaning on their offensive line to set the tone. But make no mistake, this is still a work in progress.
The pass protection isn't elite yet, and without Calvin Austin III in the lineup, there's been a clear lack of a receiver who can consistently beat man coverage. Arians himself hinted at it. This team could use another weapon, someone who can separate in tight coverage and open up that passing game when defenses stack the box. Still, what's been most encouraging is that Pittsburgh has rediscovered its offensive identity. This isn't the chaotic, inconsistent unit we saw last season under Russell Wilson. This is a disciplined, balanced group that's starting to believe in itself. Rodgers isn't trying to do too much. He's managing the game like a surgeon, quick decisions, minimal mistakes, and consistent progress. The red zone efficiency has improved, and the turnovers are down. That combination, paired with an elite defense, gives Pittsburgh a real chance to win a lot of games this year, maybe even double digits. Because here's the truth, this team doesn't need to score 35 points a game to win. They just need to be good enough to complement a defense that's starting to look terrifying again. When your defense can shut down teams like Minnesota and Cleveland, and when your offense can run the ball, control the clock, and avoid giving the game away, you're in position to beat anybody. The upcoming matchups against Green Bay, Indianapolis, and Buffalo will be the true test. That's when we'll find out if this creatively cautious offense can handle the league's elite. And speaking of tests, Arians' comments also touched on what could still derail Pittsburgh: penalties, negative plays, and protection issues. If this team gets behind the sticks, it struggles. They're not built to dig out of 3rd and 12s. But if they keep executing the way they have been, staying disciplined and efficient, they can hang with anyone. Arthur Smith isn't trying to reinvent football. He's trying to perfect what works. It's an approach that's starting to remind some fans of the early 2000s Steelers, hard-nosed, run-heavy, and built around smart football. Maybe that's why the national narrative is starting to shift. When analysts like Orlovsky, who were among the loudest critics last year, start saying this offense is good enough to beat Buffalo, Kansas City, and Indy, you know something real is happening in Pittsburgh. So the question now is this: with the identity clearly taking shape and the results beginning to show. Is this version of the Steelers' offense truly built to last against playoff caliber teams? Because sustaining success in the NFL isn't just about finding an identity, it's about evolving it. That's the challenge Arthur Smith faces now in Pittsburgh. What worked in September and early October won't be enough once defenses start adjusting, studying tendencies, and stacking the box. The lead catches on fast, and that's where the next step must come, building a more dynamic passing game without losing the discipline and physicality that's brought the Steelers this far. Bruce Arians, for all his praise, was right to raise a red flag about protection and passing depth. The Steelers have done a great job hiding their weaknesses by playing to their strengths, but that only works for so long. You can feel it watching the tape. When Pittsburgh is in third and long, the rhythm changes. The timing breaks down. Rodgers' quick release and intelligence keep plays alive, but without a consistent vertical threat or elite pass blocking, the playbook shrinks. That's not sustainable in December or January, when you're facing playoff defenses that won't give you those short completions. That's why a midseason trade or a late blooming breakout from a young receiver could change everything. Calvin Austin III's return will help, but it's clear this team still lacks that one guy who can win a man-to-man matchup against the top corner and flip a drive with a big play. Until that happens, Pittsburgh's offense will have to keep relying on its efficiency, its run game, and its ability to stay in manageable situations. It's not flashy football, but it's Steelers football. And while everyone talks about the offense, the heartbeat of this team remains its defense. That's where Pittsburgh's identity has always lived, and it's where this season's hopes will ultimately rest. T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Nick Herbig have turned this pass rush into a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. There's been debate online, some fans arguing whether Highsmith should be traded or replaced to make room for Herbig's rise, but that argument misses the point entirely. You don't weaken the strongest part of your team when you're trying to win now. What makes this Steelers defense special is depth and relentlessness. When what comes off the field, offenses think they get a breather, and then Herbig crashes off the edge with fresh legs and the same explosion. When you rotate 3 starter-level edge rushers like that, you don't just create matchup problems, you extend dominance through all 4 quarters. This is how the Steelers stay dangerous, and that's why trading Highsmith this year, as some fans suggest, would be a mistake. You don't give away one of your best weapons in a season that feels like a legitimate playoff push. Now, some will argue that Herbig's payday is coming, that the cap will eventually force tough choices. That's true, but that's a problem for the future. Right now, the math works. You can keep Watt, Highsmith, and Herbig together for another season, and that trio might be what carries this team through the grind. Because as much as everyone loves to talk about offense, it's this defense that gives the Steelers a Super Bowl ceiling. When you look across the field at other contenders, the Chiefs, the Bills, even the Ravens, they all rely on explosive offenses to win shootouts. Pittsburgh isn't built that way. Their path to victory looks different. It's about suffocating pressure, field position, and mistake-free football. The kind of football that makes opponents miserable. The kind of football Bruce Arians, deep down, probably still respects more than any other. And here's the thing, that formula can absolutely win in the postseason. We've seen it before. A dominant defense, a quarterback who protects the ball, and an offense that pounds the rock, converts in the red zone, and doesn't blink under pressure. That's how this franchise raised Lombardis in the past. It's not glamorous, but it's real, and it's starting to feel familiar again. So, as this team heads deeper into the season, the question isn't whether the Steelers are contenders, it's whether this balance can hold. Can Arthur Smith's offense keep evolving just enough to keep defenses off balance? Can Rodgers and this offensive line continue to play within their limits without letting those limits define them? Can this defense stay healthy enough to dominate when it matters most? The answers to those questions will decide whether this year's Steelers are just another tough team or something greater. Because right now, everything is on the table. The formula is there. The belief is back. The execution is improving. And for the first time in a while, it feels like the Pittsburgh Steelers are building something that's not just working, but built to last. What do you think, Steelers Nation? Is this the version of the black and gold that can finally bring playoff football and maybe more back to Pittsburgh? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, subscribe for daily Steelers breakdowns, and stick around, the next video's already waiting for you. And as we look ahead to the next stretch of games, this is where the Steelers' true character will be tested. The schedule tightens. The competition rises. Green Bay, Indianapolis, Buffalo, all teams that can expose weaknesses if the Steelers get complacent. These games will show us whether Arthur Smith's offense can adapt, or if it will eventually get caught repeating the same tendencies that smarter defenses will key on. But if there's one thing this team has shown, it's resilience. You can sense it on the sideline, a different kind of confidence. There's no panic, no chaos, no frustration boiling over. Instead, there's composure. When you watch Aaron Rodgers take the field, you see a quarterback who's embraced the system rather than fought against it. He's not chasing highlight plays. He's managing drives, taking what the defense gives him, and trusting the structure around him. That kind of maturity, combined with Arthur Smith's balance and discipline, is why this offense has quietly become one of the most efficient in football over the past few weeks. But let's be real, for Pittsburgh to make a deep run, they'll need more than just efficiency. They'll need a spark. That's where someone like George Pickens, Calvin Austin III, or even Darnell Washington could become the X factor. The Steelers don't need someone to take over games every week. They just need a few big moments that flip momentum. A contested catch on third down, a seam route in the red zone, a deep shot when the defense least expects it. Those are the plays that separate playoff teams from playoff pretenders. And speaking of separation, this defense might be the most complete version we've seen since the early 2010s. What is on a Defensive Player of the Year pace again? Highsmith is finding his groove, and Herbig's motor never stops. Together, they formed the league's most relentless edge rotation, one that never allows quarterbacks to breathe. Add in the continued growth of players like Joey Porter Jr. and Minkah Fitzpatrick's leadership in the secondary, and you start to understand why the Steelers' defense isn't just good. It's built for January football. Bruce Arians pointed out that this team's success comes from playing complementary football, and he's right. The offense doesn't overextend itself because it doesn't have to. The defense shortens the field. The special teams flip momentum. It's a throwback formula, but in today's NFL, where high-flying offenses often collapse under pressure, it might just be the one that works. Still, the margin for error is razor thin. A couple of turnovers, a missed assignment in pass protection, and suddenly the Steelers' carefully constructed balance can crumble. That's why Smith's calm, detail-oriented philosophy has been such a